In what is turning out to be one of the biggest media scandals we have seen in a very long time, the Washington Post has issued a lengthy correction to an article where they claimed Donald Trump told officials in Georgia to find the fraud and you will be a hero. As it turns out, the story is completely false. Now, you may have heard me talk about this yesterday in my main segment. It wasn't the lead of the segment. I was more concerned about the cultural ramifications of what's happening with the Democratic Party and many people, expressing their disdain or disavowing the Democratic Party. But the story is actually becoming much more serious. You see, while we know the media lies, and in this instance, the Washington Post put out a story claiming they had an independent source confirming this phone call, they never actually listened to the phone call. What makes this story so much more insane is the numerous news outlets that all claimed to have confirmed the exact same lie. This is it, my friends. Many people have come to me and said, Tim, how do I convince my friends and family the media is lying to them, or at the very least, completely irresponsible? My friends, we have another opportunity here. So maybe you are one of these people. Maybe you genuinely trust the media and believe them. And I will tell you this. The media is not all bad. They just get things wrong often enough to cause very serious problems for our country. So maybe someone shared this video with you and said you need to watch this to understand what the media is doing. I'm going to break it down for all of you. For those that understand this already and haven't heard the story or are interested in what I have to say, share this video. Maybe you will find some people who will finally realize, because I'm going to go through a series of news outlets that pushed the lie but claimed that they had independently verified what we now know to be false. So I'll put it quite simply for you. How is it that so many outlets, news organizations said this conversation with Trump asking someone to find fraud really happened? How can they say that? How did they confirm this? How did all of these outlets confirm this? They didn't. They lied, or I should say, their standards are so incredibly low for what they deem to be factual news. They took a random quote from a random person and said, boom, confirmed. In the end, you were lied to, or you were misled. I'll put it that way. Lie implies intent. Considering we now know that even if we think these news outlets have been duped, the individual who confirmed the call to all these news outlets absolutely lied. And that's what you need to understand about how the media operates. A single source claiming something happened was enough for all of these outlets to push the narrative. Why? The Trump bump, perhaps. But then think about how easy it is for nefarious actors to manipulate the press. Oh, maybe you're on the left. Maybe you're a Democrat. Maybe you're saying, okay, well, this is that one time. Well, think about it. How many journalists, I'll do air quotes, do you think would be willing to take an anonymous quote from a Republican who's giving some dubious statement and they'll just run it as fact as well? How many smear pieces do you think have emerged on people that you like? How many times have you read a story where like, hey, that can't be true? This is the time where we all need, look, you need to show people what's happened here. This is now 2 months on, possibly one of the biggest media scandals we've seen in years. The Washington Examiner reports, audio shows the media got the Trump Georgia story all wrong. Do a little bit better, Washington Examiner, because while I think you're right, audio shows the media fabricated, or it's not just they got the story wrong, they pushed an absolutely fake story. The Examiner reports, it's an opinion piece. It's one thing if a single news outlet publishes a fraudulent, anonymously sourced scoop. It's another thing entirely if multiple newsrooms claim they independently confirmed the fraudulent scoop with anonymous sources of their own. The former can be reasonably explained away as a simple error. The latter is not so simple. It's unrealistic. So many sources would be wrong about the same thing. It's more likely competing news outlets spoke with the same anonymous individual or individuals, which leads to an uncomfortable question about whether the media were merely fed bad information or were intentionally manipulated. In January, the Washington Post scored a humdinger of a scoop. Then President Donald Trump, still reeling from the results of the 2020 election, urged Georgia's lead elections investigator to, quote, find the fraud in a lengthy December phone call, saying the official would be a national hero. The Washington Post reported, citing a single anonymous source who supposedly confirmed the details of the private conversation. Now, the first thing I'll say is There's supposed to be 3 sources to confirm a story. At least that was the standard a long time ago. Apparently, that's not where we're at anymore. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you the official AP correction published by the Washington Post. In a story, January 9th, 2021, about a phone call between then President Donald Trump and a lead Georgia elections investigator, the Associated Press, based on information provided by a source, erroneously reported that Trump pressed the investigator to, quote, find the fraud, and said it would make the investigator a national hero. A recording of the call was made public 2 months later. A recording that was made public 2 months later revealed Trump did not say either, and instead said that if the investigator looked into Fulton County, the investigator would, quote, find things that are going to be unbelievable. Trump also told the investigator, when the right answer comes out, you'll be praised. It's worse than just this correction. It's worse than a series of outlets actually just somehow confirming the same false details. Some outlets have absolutely refused to issue a hard correction and are using weasel words to push the same false narrative. And I'll show you that. But first, let's keep reading. They go on to say, in released audio of the phone call, shows that Trump never said those things, find the fraud. He never urged the investigations chief to find fraud in Georgia's presidential election results. He never promised the investigator would be a national hero. Rather, Trump said, if you can get to Fulton County, Georgia, you're going to find things that are going to be unbelievable, the dishonesty. He followed this by telling the investigations official she'll be praised when, not if, she produces the evidence of wrongdoing. There's a significant difference between saying you're going to find things that are going to be unbelievable. And saying find the fraud. One represents the president notifying an investigations official of voter fraud in a specified county. The other represents the president demanding an investigations official get him the results he wants, regardless of the facts of the matter. Further, the Washington Post alleges Trump pressured the official. The report also alleges that the president's part in the conversation meandered from flattery to frustration and back again. However, with the exception of flattery, a review of the audio doesn't appear to support these characterizations of the call. The Washington Post got it wrong, plain and simple. Now they issued this correction. If you can believe it, the Washington Post bungling its bombshell report isn't the most scandalous thing about the episode. No, the most scandalous thing is several newsrooms claimed they independently confirmed the most damning details. NBC News reported, quote, confirmed the Post's characterization of the call through a source familiar with the conversation. USA Today claimed a Georgia official speaking on the condition of anonymity to discuss internal matters confirmed the details of the call. ABC News reported, quote, President Donald Trump phoned a chief investigator in Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger's office, asking the official to find the fraud and telling this person they would be a national hero for it. An individual familiar with the matter confirmed to ABC News. PBS NewsHour and CNN likewise seemingly claimed they independently confirmed the story through their own anonymous sources. I'd like to show you something. I pulled up some of these stories. Before I show you them, I want to stress one other really important aspect of this narrative. The quote was literally used in the impeachment process. When the Democrats were trying to impeach Trump post-presidency, they used this quote to prove that Trump was doing things wrong. The media put out a fake story that was confirmed poorly with low standards that should have been blocked by any good and honorable, reasonable journalist. And then it was used to try and impeach the president. Now, let me show you some of these things from CNN. Actually, before I do CNN, let me show you this. We have this story from CNBC. They say Trump pressured Georgia top elections investigator to find the fraud in phone call. No update. The story from January 9th from Emma Newberger for CNBC has not yet been corrected. So even though we now know the story is false and it's been a few days, this story still exists. And of course, it absolutely does say NBC News has confirmed the Post's characterization of the December 23rd call through a source familiar with the conversation. How did they confirm it? Didn't happen. So they pushed a lie. One person who was pushing a false narrative made 10 phone calls, and then all of a sudden you have yourself a national news story. That's how it works, my friends. It's a game of telephone. You see, what happens is someone writes a story that's clearly sensationalized. It gets them traffic. All the other outlets realize the risk if they lose out on this story. And so they begin pushing the same narrative and they talk to the exact same people. They say that they confirm the details based on a source from the conversation. So who are these sources? At this point, I believe it is incumbent upon these news outlets to out these sources for manipulating them, for lying. They won't do it, of course, because the name of the game is the collusion between the media. Now, while some of these outlets like USA Today, they still say this, a Georgia official speaking on the condition of anonymity to discuss internal matters confirmed the details of the call to USA Today. This story also not been updated. I'm sorry. This one actually has been updated. This is amazing. Look at this. The USA Today writes, correction, a January 9th story incorrectly quoted President Donald Trump during a conversation with a Georgia official based on incorrect information provided to USA Today. A subsequent recording of the call published by the Wall Street Journal shows Trump asked the official to look for dishonesty. That's not even true. He said, investigate and you will find dishonesty. I think I guess fine, maybe you can say technically the truth, but I love how they still included this line claiming it was confirmed. Here's my favorite. CNN. Trump pressured Georgia elections investigator to search for dishonesty in the 2020 ballots. Updated 1:41 p.m. Monday, March 15th, 2021. So now they're saying he pressured Georgia elections investigators to search for dishonesty. That's interesting. According to the Examiner, they say you can't even hear much pressure of anything. It's him basically saying, investigate. What does it mean to pressure someone? This is not a news story, my friends. This is an opinion piece. This is what you need to realize about the media. Trump pressured is an opinion statement. If Donald Trump said, could you please investigate? I think you should. You could say he pressured them. You could say he demanded of them. You could say he requested of them. You could say that Trump asked about. They chose the word pressured. It creates a framing. It's a framing device that makes it feel as though Donald Trump's yelling at them, trying to force them to do it, when in reality, Trump could very well be saying, please help me, please. Trump begs for help from Georgia elections investigator to find dishonesty. Here's my favorite part. Check this out. Editor's note. Not even a correction. You know why? CNN won't issue a correction. They say an earlier version of the story, published January 9th, presented paraphrasing of the president's comments to the Georgia elections investigator as direct quotes. The story has been updated following the discovery of an audio recording of the call. Updated, not corrected, just an editor's note. Why? Because they did not change the actual story. Now all they do is they removed the words "the fraud" from the quote. Now it says this. During a stunning hour-long phone call earlier this month, Trump pushed Raffensperger to, quote, find votes to overturn the election results after his loss to Biden. So that is a different phone call, mind you. The people of Georgia are angry. The people of the country are angry, yada, yada. Raffensperger told ABC Good Morning America he didn't feel pressure from the president. So that's actually a different phone call, which is interesting. Is CNN conflating the two? They say President Donald Trump last month urged the chief investigator of the Georgia Secretary of State's office to search for dishonesty in the 2020 election, telling the individual that the investigation was of national importance. The phone call, first reported by the Washington Post, is the latest unearthed effort, yada, yada. Okay, so the find thing was part of the different phone call. Interesting thing about this is that it's about time we get hard corrections, and they're not doing it. CNN is still claiming the exact same narrative. They just removed certain quotes. Many outlets haven't even done that. It's absolutely insane. They say this over at the Washington Examiner. The most likely scenario is ABC, the Washington Post, and others shared the same source or sources. It's either that or a bunch of people managed somehow to be wrong about a very specific claim, which is highly unlikely. The uncomfortable questions we are left with now are, to whom did these news outlets speak? How did the source or sources get the details of the phone call wrong? Are there additional examples of the media reporting bad information provided by anonymous sources we don't know about, merely because there's no contradictory audio or video? Just how many anonymously sourced stories are not true? If it can happen this easily, who is to say it doesn't happen often? Further, how many of these bogus stories have enjoyed the backing of supposed independent corroboration when in fact newsrooms most likely talk to the same person or people? How does one confirm something that is not true? You're asking me. This is exactly what we warned about during the Trump years when the press dropped all hesitation and standards regarding the usage of anonymous sources. We warned it would lead to the publication of dubious or flat out false allegations that are all but impossible to verify. We warned competing newsrooms would feel inclined anyway to confirm the anonymously made allegations with their own nameless sources. We warned if even one widely confirmed report based on anonymous sources turned to be false, it would lead only to further erosion of trust in the news industry. Now that we know false reports based on anonymous sourcing can enjoy equally fraudulent corroboration, Who is to say there are not more examples of this type of thing? The whole thing is a mess, and it's entirely of the press's own creation. But hey, at least the journalists who got it wrong can say they resisted Trump. We now have a statement from Donald Trump. He says the Washington Post just issued a correction as to the contents of an incorrectly reported phone call I had with respect to voter fraud in the great state of Georgia. He says, well, I appreciate the Washington Post's correction, which immediately makes the Georgia witch hunt a non-story. The original story was a hoax right from the beginning. I would further appreciate a strong investigation into Fulton County, Georgia, and the Stacey Abrams political machine, which I believe would totally, well, I'm not going to repeat what Trump says because YouTube will ban me if I do, but Trump thinks it will benefit him to say the least. Fulton County has not been properly audited, et cetera, et cetera. He says, you will notice that establishment media errors, omissions, mistakes, and outright lies always slant one way, against me and Republicans. Meanwhile, stories that hurt Democrats or undermine their narratives are buried, ignored, or delayed until they can do the least harm. For example, after an election is over. Look no further than the negative coverage of the vaccine that preceded the election and the overdue celebration of the vaccine once the election had concluded. A strong democracy requires a fair and honest press. The latest media travesty underscores that legacy media outlets should be regarded as political entities, not journalistic enterprises. In any event, I thank the Washington Post for the correction. We then have this. Henry Rogers tweets, Glenn, this is the impeachment brief. The fake quote is in it. And we can see in the impeachment brief, you can see the quote, find the fraud. It was there. Fox News, Democrats leaned on false WAPO find the fraud quote in impeachment hearings. Rep. Madeline Dean repeated the now corrected quotes while encouraging senators to convict Trump in the Senate impeachment trial. The fourth estate, the press. These institutions are supposed to be guarding us. They're supposed to be protecting the American people from the lies and manipulations of the authority. There was a big fear with the collapse of local journalism. Local politicians will start becoming corrupt and they will get away with it. And I believe that truly does happen. The idea is that news is becoming nationalized, that local news isn't as riveting or important to most people. They don't care all that much about their local comptroller or whatever, so they pay attention more to Donald Trump. That means with less scrutiny on local officials, corruption will reign supreme. Local news outlets would challenge these officials, the stories would come out, and then they would be, found culpable of something or maybe exonerated. Now it's not happening. But at the national level, we're seeing, even with a nationalized press, the thirst among these journalists is for rage bait, clickbait, drama trash. Instead of telling you what's really going on so you can be better informed and make decisions, they just tell you what they think will get clicks because they want to sell ads, sell subscriptions, and make money. And they accuse me of being a grifter. Meanwhile, I host people on the Timcast IRL podcast that many people criticize and thumbs down me for. Maybe one of the few channels who will actually still try to have conversations with people that some people don't like their opinions or be critical of as many people as possible. I think we're all biased, and I don't think I'm perfect at all. Although I try to make sure I'm being honest and calling out the manipulations because I truly want you to be able to make the best decisions for yourself. I don't want to be in charge of anything. I want to mind my own business, and I want to call out those that lie, cheat, and steal to gain power. The media doesn't care. They're the true grifters. They're the ones threatened by people like me because I will call them out. Other people in independent media will absolutely do the same. People like Glenn Greenwald, Matt Taibbi, Michael Tracy, for instance, big fans of those three journalists, mind you. They'll absolutely call out the lies from the establishment press and the manipulations. And this is where we are. We know they lie. Many people haven't been exposed or initiated. I guess this is now, becoming an aspect of my belief structure, I guess, is what people keep repeating. That I often say that the culture war is people who are discerning and people who are not. People who are initiated politically and people who are not. The people who are not politically initiated don't know about this stuff, don't know about these problems, and don't pay attention. They're not typically discerning, meaning, you'll see a news story from CNN and go, wow. But those of us that are familiar with the Gell-Mann amnesia effect are probably saying, I don't buy this for 1 second. And maybe you're someone new. You've not seen my content before, and someone shared this video with you. So I'll explain the Gell-Mann amnesia effect because I don't want to assume everybody just knows what this is. Think about something in which you are an expert. Maybe you're really good at baseball. Maybe you're a huge fan of football. Maybe you're really good at, what is it, cross stitch or like knitting or maybe fashion design, fabric, furniture, whatever. You got some expertise. You pull up a newspaper and it says, world-renowned knitter did a double back loop stitch triple variant. And you're like, that's not a real thing. Like, this person just made that up. Quite literally, I made that up. I don't know. It's a garbage idea. And you might be saying, that's not a thing. What are you talking about? What is this? This article is fake. What? Then you turn the page. Figuratively speaking, you click the next link. The next story you read says, war in Syria. Insurgent does this thing. And you go, wow, I didn't know that was happening. The point is, when you read news about subjects in which you are an expert, you can clearly see the falsehoods and, what they got wrong. But when you read news and you are not an expert, did you forget that they were incorrect in the previous article? That's the Gell-Mann amnesia effect. We read stories as the layman, assuming they must be true. Even I now. Granted, I actually fact check things. So I looked at the correction, I saw what was reported, and I fact-checked some of the claims. That's why I pulled up the other stories saying they confirmed this to prove that the Washington Examiner was correct. Because I actually tried to investigate and find the source material. But there are many people who read the news just believing it to be true. The problem is the media will also tell you, corporate press, that independent voices are bigots and far-right and conspiracy theorists. Well, they've created a trap. If you are not discerning, and you blindly just trust the media, you're going to blindly trust that channels like mine are lying. More importantly, or worse still, there are political activists that aren't doing it for money. They're doing it for ideological gain. They'll take quotes from me out of context. They'll take only the worst possible statements they would assume I would make. So I could say something like, Mitch McConnell is bad and should be impeached, and Nancy Pelosi is bad and should be impeached. And they'll only take the quote about Nancy Pelosi to poison the well among those who don't watch my content so that they believe I'm strictly critical of Nancy Pelosi and not basically everybody, to be completely honest. Rather pessimistic in many ways, unfortunately. I'll try to do better. But that's the name of the game. They don't want people to actually see counter information. Think about CNN. It's a very famous moment with Brian Stelter when he told his audience not to watch Fox News or because, they're the spin. We're the real news. Only watch us. Anybody who's telling you not to seek out other opinions or information is trying to trick you. I won't tell you to do that. I'll specifically say, go watch CNN, see what Brian Stelter has to say. And if I'm wrong, then so be it. You also had, I think it was Jake Tapper who said, you can't read the WikiLeaks emails. It's illegal. Only we can read it. Yeah, don't read the emails that are getting released publicly that you're allowed to read. Anyone who's telling you, only come to me for the truth, is lying to you. I'm wrong all the time. I sometimes don't have the specific citation pulled up, and I'll tell people to fact check me. There's a meme about it. I'll say, fact check me. I could be wrong on this one. Maybe I got that one wrong, and I definitely got that one wrong. And when I get things wrong or when stories change, I issue corrections. What about CNN? They didn't issue a correction. They issued an editor's note. And they just removed the quotes but kept the story the same. Opinion pieces masquerading as news. Now, a lot of what I've just done today is, of course, opinion commentary on news stories. But it's journalistic in the sense that I fact-check some of the claims. Before I just started reading this, I looked at what Washington Examiner said, pulled up the sources they claimed had made these statements, and then confirmed. Many of them did. I can't confirm some of them. That's why I didn't show them. So I'll leave it at that. The media is not here to be your friend. The media is a corporate machine designed to make money. It is a capitalistic enterprise. If you are someone who views yourself as on the left or a socialist and you don't like capitalism, never forget these companies, even Fox News, Breitbart, CNBC, the New York Times, I don't care who they are and where they lean. Their goal is to make money from you. I guess it is what it is. It's gonna require people to have a critical eye of the media if we're going to solve this problem. But I'll leave it there. Next segment's coming up at 1 p.m. on this channel. Thanks for hanging out, and I will see you all then.